Dear beloved friends, tonight I will share with you the story of Noah and the Great Flood, a major turning point in human history. This remarkable story, recorded in Genesis chapters 5 through 9, speaks of humanity's fall, God's judgment, and a new beginning. May this be a time for us to reflect on God's love and justice, the covenant He made with humanity, and the importance of faith. After God created Adam and Eve, time passed on this earth and generations began to follow one after another, forming the lineage of humanity. God blessed them with children, and their descendants multiplied over time. However, human history was not merely a cycle of birth and death. God had a purpose planned through people, and that purpose was unfolding quietly yet surely. When Adam was 130 years old, he had a son named Seth and lived until the age of 930. Such a long lifespan is very different from what we see today. Back then, human lifespans were much longer. The name Seth means appointed or substitute. After losing Abel, Adam and Eve were filled with sorrow, but God gave them hope again through Seth. Seth became the father of Enosh at the age of 105 and lived to be 912 years old. He lived according to God's will, and his descendants continued to grow in number. Seth's son Enosh lived in reverence for God, and his descendants, Kenan, Mahalalel, and Jared, also lived under God's blessing. Among these descendants, there was one person who stood out in a special way. His name was Enoch. Enoch was different from others. Rather than simply living a long life, he valued walking with God above all else. The Bible says, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. Enoch had a very close relationship with God. He believed in God, communed with Him, and made every effort to live a life that pleased Him. God was pleased with Enoch, and in the end, He took him to heaven in a unique way. Enoch is one of the few people in history who was taken by God without experiencing death. His life teaches us a powerful lesson that walking with God is the most meaningful and valuable way to live. Enoch's son, Methuselah, lived for an astonishing 969 years, the longest lifespan recorded in the Bible. Interestingly, his name is believed to mean, when he dies, it will come, and it is said that the great flood began in the year he died. Methuselah's son, Lamech, had a special faith. When he had a son, he said, "This child will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." That child's name was Noah. Noah later became the father of three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, when he was 500 years old. These three would become the ancestors of humanity after the Great Flood. Genesis chapter 6 reveals the deep moral decline of humanity. The time into which Noah was born was growing increasingly dark. In this chapter, there is a mysterious verse that says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." While interpretations of this passage vary, what's important is that these unions accelerated the moral corruption of humankind. People began to turn away from God, and sin began to fill the world. As the human population grew, so did wickedness. People lived for their own selfish desires, hating and fighting one another. Violence and evil acts covered the earth, and those who worshiped God became exceedingly rare. God saw the wickedness of humanity and was deeply grieved. The verse that says, "Every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time shows the depth of humanity's fallen nature. God decided to wipe mankind, whom he had created, from the face of the earth. This was a judgment, but it was also a preparation for a new beginning. God did not give up on the world. He still loved humanity and chose one man to fulfill his purpose. That man was Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. This verse reveals Noah's faith and character. Even in a time when everyone else was corrupt, it was still possible to live a life following God. Through Noah, God planned a new beginning. God spoke to Noah, saying, "I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives." God commanded Noah to build an ark. Though people mocked and ridiculed him, Noah quietly obeyed and built the ark as God instructed. God gave Noah detailed instructions about the size, materials, and structure of the ark. It was a massive vessel made of gopher wood. The ark was 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It had 3 decks, a window, and a door. This ark was no ordinary boat. It was a special vessel designed to preserve life, part of God's plan of salvation. God also instructed Noah to bring into the ark pairs of every kind of animal, 7 pairs of clean animals, 1 pair of unclean animals, and 7 pairs of birds. This was to preserve the earth's ecosystem after the flood. Noah obeyed exactly as God had commanded him. This was a powerful testimony to his faith and obedience. Finally, the appointed time came, just as God had said. Dark clouds filled the sky, and the earth grew dim. On the 17th day of the 2nd month in Noah's 600th year, the great flood began. After Noah, his family, and all the animals had entered the ark, God himself shut the door. The Bible says, "All the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights." This was no ordinary rain. It was a massive deluge accompanied by upheavals of the earth. Every living creature outside the ark perished. Only Noah and those with him inside the ark survived. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. During this time, the ark floated on the surface of the waters, and Noah's family and the animals were safely protected inside. God remembered Noah and all the living creatures inside the ark. Then God sent a wind over the earth, and the waters began to recede. After 150 days, on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to go down, and by the 1st day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 more days, Noah sent out a raven, which flew back and forth until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove, but it found no place to rest and returned to the ark. 7 days later, Noah sent out the dove again, and this time it returned in the evening with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. From this, Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. After another 7 days, he sent the dove out again, and this time it did not return, signaling that the earth was dry. In the 601st year of Noah's life, on the 1st day of the 1st month, the surface of the ground was dry. Noah removed the covering of the ark and saw that the land was drying, but he waited for God's command. On the 27th day of the 2nd month, God spoke to Noah, "Come out of the ark, You and your wife and your sons and their wives, bring out every living creature that is with you." Noah obeyed God's command and led his family and all the animals out of the ark. After a long period of waiting, they stepped onto the new land, and Noah knelt down and gave thanks to God in prayer. After coming out of the ark, the first thing Noah did was offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving to God. He took some of the clean animals and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Noah's heart was filled with gratitude for God's grace. God was pleased with Noah's offering and made a covenant with himself, saying, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, nor will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." Noah and his family were comforted by God's words. They began preparing to start life anew on the land they had been given. God blessed Noah and his family and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." This was the same command God had given to Adam and Eve at creation. A new beginning, a second chance had been granted. As God ushered in a new era, he established a new order between humanity and nature. Animals would now fear humans, and God gave people permission to eat animals. However, they were not to eat the blood, for the blood represents life. God regarded human life as extremely precious. "Whoever sheds human blood by humans shall their blood be shed, for in the image of God has God made mankind." This command emphasized the seriousness of murder and the sanctity of human life. God made a covenant with Noah, his descendants, and all living creatures. He promised never again to destroy all life with a flood. As a sign of this covenant, God gave the rainbow. "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." From that time on, the rainbow became a symbol of God's promise and mercy. Noah and his family began living in this new land and new era. His three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, each had children and spread out over the earth. God commanded them to be fruitful and multiply, and humanity once again continued its life upon the earth. After the flood, Noah became a farmer and planted a vineyard. But one day he became drunk from the wine and lay uncovered inside his tent. His son Ham saw his father's nakedness and went outside to tell his brothers. Shem and Japheth, however, walked in backward and covered their father with a garment, showing respect and preserving his dignity. When Noah awoke and learned what Ham had done, he pronounced a curse on Ham's son, Canaan, and blessed Shem and Japheth. This event had lasting implications for the relationships between their descendants and future generations. Noah lived 350 years after the flood and died at the age of 950. He was one of the greatest patriarchs since Adam, a man of faith who led humanity into a new beginning. Noah's story reveals both the justice of God's judgment and the mercy that brings about new beginnings. Spiritually, it speaks of God's righteous judgment against sin and the principle of salvation through faith. There are times when we cannot understand God's will during difficult circumstances. Just as Noah waited patiently in the ark, we too must sometimes wait for God's timing in the midst of life's trials. Yet God never forgets us. He will surely fulfill His plans and lead us according to His will. Just as we remember God's faithfulness when we see a rainbow, may we also remember His love and grace in our own lives. May you sleep peacefully tonight with this story in your heart. And may we all have faith and obedience like Noah in our own journeys.